Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Forever Young, the program that celebrates life for those of us who are over 40. Well, you know, they say life begins at 40, so everything before that is a dress rehearsal. So if you're 55, you're really only 15. And if you're 60, you're really only 40. So again, because we say age ain't nothing but a number. And so we're so delighted to be with you here today. I'm your host, David C. Linton, and I always share this platform with my lovely co-hosts, and it makes me feel good to be the only man on this program. Okay, just a little ego thing, but hey, I'm forever young. That's what it's all about, right? Of course, I'm talking about the beautiful Jean Hendricks. Hello, Jean.
Hi, David. As always, I'm delighted to share this post with you again. Thank you so much. Back to you.
Always wonderful to see a smiling face. And of course, I call her the glue. She keeps us together. She's the one who makes sure that we look good, sound good, and sound intelligent. And that is Dr. Sharon Mitchell. How are you doing, Sharon?
I'm doing good, David. As always, it's a pleasure to be on this platform with you and Miss Jean. I'm looking forward to today's discussions as well.
Well, always a pleasure. And you know, we can't get the show started without our words of wisdom. I'm trying to come up with something. Maybe there'll be Jean's nuggets or Jean's pearls, wisdoms of pearl. But of course, Jean has something that always sets the stage for today's program. So Jean, I know you have something for us for this episode.
Of course, yes, I do, David. And I am going to share with you just a portion of a poem that I have because it's kind of long. But it simply says that in lupus, however you forget when you have what you have planned your war. I am more than my work. Relationships with having had a stand steady under attack, I continue to rise again and again to reinvent myself. I am God's child, and you can never take from me what I refuse to give. Back to you, David.
Well, thank you, Jean. And again, like I said, it always sets the table. If those of you who were with us last week, we've been talking about, and since we kicked off season 5, we've been talking about health thing. Of course, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we've had 2 great shows about that. And then last week we started talking about lupus awareness, because you know we say age ain't nothing but a number, but you're also as young as you feel. But in order to feel good and to feel young, you got to take care of your health. But there are those things that are chronic illnesses that we may have to find ourselves living with. And so lupus is one of those things, and we learned last week so much from our 2 guests that we had to invite them to come back. First, Mr. Christopher Reed, who is a native of Atlanta, Georgia. He was diagnosed with lupus at the age of 16. And despite close brushes with death, he went on to earn a bachelor's degree from Georgia State. He went on to Tulane, where he received his law degree. He's a practicing attorney, public speaker, policy analyst, and has lived a full life despite having this crippling and sometimes deadly disease. He now serves as a support group facilitator, advocacy chair, and project manager for the Lupus Foundation of America's Georgia chapter. His support group is designed specifically for men, and it's the first type of its kind in the United States. And as an advocacy chair, he gives presentations on patient advocacy, public health policy, and so many things. And we'll give some more information about him. Our other guest is someone who's a little closer to home. And she is a member, a hardworking member, I will say, of the House of Hope Atlanta. She's our congregational care minister. And she too is living with lupus. And we will get more into some of the information that they started talking about last week. Of course, I'm talking about Pam Hicks. And so Pam, welcome back to the program. Chris, welcome back to the show. It's just so much that we had last week. So it's good to have you guys back with us again this week. We started talking, for those of people who weren't with us last week. Um, Chris, give us an overview of what is lupus, and you know, people hear it and they think they know, but they may not know. So, can you just give us a little broad stroke of what it's all about?
Yes, in fact, it's funny that we're talking a little bit about COVID because the President Trump really talked briefly about lupus during one of his segments last year when we were talking about one of the medicines that is often used to treat autoimmune diseases. But lupus is an autoimmune disease, which means that the immune system attacks healthy tissue as if it's foreign matter, so as if it's bacteria or an infection or even cancer. It attacks the immune system. Oftentimes, I tell people that essentially people who live with lupus, like me and Pam, we are allergic to ourselves. Our immune system reacts in a way that it wouldn't react in someone like you. And so, oftentimes the condition manifests in symptoms such as inflammation in the heart, inflammation in the joints, so arthritis, inflammation in the muscles, inflammation in the brain or the vascular system. There's really actually, in fact, like 11 different lupus specific symptoms, but really there are way more, and we'd probably be here another segment to really go over all of that. But
Wow.
definitely, I
Mhm.
encourage people to look it up because we kind of stress at the chapter that early diagnosis can certainly improve a person's life.
One of the things that we talked about from last week's program was that it was they really look at it in men. And we also talked about, the hereditary aspect. Pam shared with us with her siblings had lupus, and she was diagnosed. But I think one of the things that we really want to talk about this week is, the misdiagnosis. And even when we're off camera in between, we learned about even Sharon having been diagnosed with lupus when she didn't have it. So, first of all, what are some of the signs? I'll go to Pam on this question. What are how was the first thing that you knew that, something was wrong?
Well, for me, not being able to really walk, drastic weight loss um, when I wasn't trying to lose the weight, the fatigue, um, the I mean, I had kept running fevers. I would have blood clots. I had the pink eye in both eyes. You know, just going back and forth to the hospital because, I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't know what it was. And and breaking out with the rash, the bumps, and um, just unbelievable pain, sometimes headaches, um, the pain in the joints in my feet, in my hands, and just did not have a clue as to what was going on. And doctors, ran every test that you can imagine, even down to checking to see if I had meningitis, where they have to pull fluid from your brain, and just going through a whole lot of different testing, and just um, not feeling, just not being able to walk, not even feeling as though I could get out the bed, forcing myself to get up, and so it was, yeah. I don't, like I said, I don't like those flares. I didn't know what it was then, but now I know it's called a flare, and so I don't like those at all.
Looking looking at those areas of how you became who you became, and then looking at what were all the influxes that interfered with all of the stuff. We don't like to do that. That's too much work, Selena. Sometimes you have to take it in small pieces, in small fragments. You can't just run through it and say, okay, let's merrily do this work. It'll be fun. No, it's not fun work. It's painful. But we have to do it to get through it.
I know Jean has a question, but I wanted to follow up because and this is for either you or Chris, why is it so hard to diagnose this? Is it because it mirrors other things, or I mean, if you get a cold, if you sneeze or something happens, people immediately say, well, that's a cold. If you got, a pain, a joint pain, they say, well, you might have hurt your back or whatever. But this seems to be such a hard to diagnose with all you've gone through, Chris, especially with the work of the foundation. Is there, why is it so difficult to diagnose this?
Well, like you said, David, it in a way mimics or copies other conditions, or it's very possible to copy other conditions. I want to explain inflammation a little bit. Is essentially like you think of when you get a scab, when you fall and hurt your knee when you were little, and you had a little bit of pus, that comes out of the scab itself or out of the injury. That's kind of like what's going on in our body in a way. And let me say that can occur in any one of us on this call today. That we can have this inflammation in our body. But for people like me and myself and for Pam, the immune system actually gets a little bit hyperactive, and it cannot tell the difference between what's healthy and what's not. So the other reason it's hard to diagnose because patients are different. Pam indicated she had rashes, bumps, which is often called discoid rashes or malar rashes. The malar rashes occur on the cheek. I've never had a rash ever, not in the 31 years that I've had lupus. We can get mouth sores. We can get joint swelling, so arthritis. We can get inflammation in the heart, which can almost feel like a heart attack. Like when I was first diagnosed, walking up the stairwell in my house, I was crawling by the time I got to the stairwell because I felt like something was standing on my chest. Coughs. That when I was admitted to the hospital, they thought I had pneumonia because they saw a spot on the lung, but in fact it was that I had pleurisy. Essentially, my lungs were inflamed. There's not a specific test for lupus. So you have cancer, you can go and look at a tumor. You have leukemia, you can look at the blood and see the blood cells are abnormal. With lupus, they look at one blood test, but they also need to look at the doctors need to look at other symptoms, not only symptoms that you have at the time that you're at the doctor, but also symptoms in your history. And if a doctor doesn't really know to look at your history to combine these different, conditions, symptoms that you've dealt with over time, then they're not going to necessarily understand, hey, this is immediately lupus. My condition started with headaches. And so they just treated me for headaches. And then I had another condition and they treated me for that. But now looking back, they said, okay, now you're looking at your history and looking at you as a whole, it makes more sense now. And for probably 10 years after my diagnosis, even when I changed doctors, the doctor would want to run some of the blood tests. And immediately every time they ran the test, they said, "Oh yeah, you definitely have lupus. You have your ANA is what is found in the blood. It's called anti-nuclear antibody. We all have it, but in some people it's much higher than others." And so that's one of the pieces of blood work. But they're essentially the American College of Rheumatology came up at one point with 11 different symptoms of lupus. There are way more than 11 symptoms of lupus. But if a patient has 4 within their history, then typically they'll have a positive diagnosis. And one of those has to be that blood work.
Interesting. Jean, I know you had a question.
Yes.
For
Yes, Chris, I wanted to find out from you, as far as lupus is concerned, what type of treatments are available to a person that has lupus? And then also, is there medication that you have to take? Like, for example, I have high blood pressure. I have to take a pill every night. And I was wondering, does that apply also to a person that has lupus? What are the treatments?
So, yeah, sure, Gene. So in order to really attack lupus, you have to attack the symptoms. So attack the inflammation. So anti-inflammatory drugs like aspirin and ibuprofen certainly can help with the arthritic portions of the disease or with the muscle pain. But more commonly, steroids are used to fight inflammation, and steroids also basically reduce the amount that your immune system produces. So it kind of lowers or decreases your immune system's activity. But we've really found that to really treat the condition, and let me say that lupus there's no specific known cause. We talked last time about genetics, but it also can be environmental as well. So what's used to treat the disease is really suppressing the immune system. So some of us take, like myself, I take an anti-rejection drug that's usually used for people who have had a organ transplant, and that suppresses my immune system. We take chemotherapy drugs, so methotrexate, which is commonly used in chemotherapy. It's also used to treat arthritis. That's used as well. And then there's Cytoxan, which is often used for individuals who have cancer, and it's a form of chemotherapy. And just like any person living with cancer, we go in pretty regularly, get our infusion of chemotherapy, and come out. But luckily, the last really, I'm trying to remember now. It's been so long. Since in 2012, the very first drug specifically and solely designed to treat lupus was finally approved by the FDA, and that's called Benlysta. It actually attacks only a protein within the immune system itself. And in this year, Benlysta has now been believed to, or been approved to treat a certain kind of lupus called lupus nephritis, which is basically when your immune system attacks your kidneys. That's typically one of the more severe incidences with lupus, because once the immune system attacks the kidneys, it cannot be repaired. And so for me, I have stage 3 kidney disease, which causes hypertension, which causes, I have gout now because my system can't, basically my kidneys cannot filter purines. Unfortunately, people with lupus often develop so many other conditions on top of the lupus itself. So we're not only treating the symptoms of lupus, but now we're treating other conditions as well. 2 other drugs were approved this year to treat lupus. One to treat lupus in the kidneys, and then another one was used to treat lupus in general. So the work that we're doing as advocates when we go to the Georgia State Capitol or the U.S. Capitol every year, and we do this every year, we meet with our members of Congress. Pam has come several times to those events. When Pam and I go out and we lobby and we argue about lupus, we want research dollars to go to treat lupus. If you look at, we talked a little bit about people who are in active duty coming back and developing lupus. We want the Department of Defense to figure it out. We want the National Institutes of Health, the CDC to look at this condition because it primarily attacks people of color. It's, a lot of people have said the research dollars aren't going to lupus because of the people that it affects. I actually sat in a room with a member of Georgia's delegation to the U.S. Congress, and I was there on behalf of a patient who had just had a kidney transplant. And I told the doctor about that patient. I myself had almost died from an infection, and infections are very, very common in people with lupus because we have to have a suppressed immune system. And the person just kind of looked at me. The congressman looked at me and looked at one of my colleagues who was there from the Lupus Foundation. And he said, well, how much money was given to lupus when President Obama was in office? And certainly when President Obama was in office, lots of money was given. And money goes, millions of dollars go to lupus research right now. But for a condition that's been around really since the 3rd century, and a condition that was actually named in the 1800s, we should probably have a cure by now for lupus. We really should at this point. And yet we don't, and people die from this condition. People die, and so we got to do what we can, not only advocate, but to really make sure that people are aware, particularly people of color that are aware, so they can make sure they get treatment as fast as possible.
Thank you.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Jermaine Dolly, Mr. Hello Dolly himself, and guess what? You're tuned in to Tea and Worship with my homies, Mignon and Corey. Keep it locked, y'all.
Hey y'all, it's Candy West, and you're watching Tea and Worship with Mignon and Corey.
It's your boy James Fortune, and you are watching my favorite news show, Tea and Worship, with my sis Mignon and Corey.
Hey, let's check out this park. Oh, wow, that's really cool. To find a great local park or forest near you, go to discovertheforest.org.
So, Chris, is it because we don't participate in research as well as minorities? Is that part of the scenario as well?
That is certainly. So when the drug that I mentioned that was approved by the FDA in 2012, the FDA wasn't going to approve that drug because there weren't enough African Americans participating in the study. And luckily we were able to get it through, and subsequent studies were done. But one of the projects that I work on is how do we communicate with people of color about participating in clinical trials? We need to participate in these trials because drugs work differently in different people. They certainly do. We always say we are a homogenous society, but really we're not. All of us have different components within our body, and we're not going to react the same to a medication. So it's very important that we participate in these trials so that we make sure our communities are really healthy and that we're getting the right treatments, whether it be for lupus or for MS or for For arthritis, we need to participate in these trials. Yes, there are plenty of things that occurred in our history to make us really afraid of clinical trials. There are plenty of experiments done on our community as as people of color, like the Tuskegee incident with syphilis. But really, a lot of provisions are now in place to make sure that we are not being really taken advantage of during these clinical trials. And everyone who participates in a clinical trial has the right immediately to remove themselves from that trial. A doctor is not going to force it in. So we're working on a number of projects right now to, one, educate patients, but also educate doctors on how to communicate with their patients about clinical trials, making sure that doctors of color, are communicating the need to participate in clinical trials. Because really, we found that these clinical trials, we've 2 drugs in 1 year approved for lupus is exciting. It's amazing. I was just, when I found this out, I was just ecstatic about the idea that, oh wow, now there are treatments. Because when I was the prognosis for me when I was diagnosed was 10 years. I would live for 10 years.
Wow.
Back in 1919, and I didn't know if I didn't know I was going to finish college at all. I thought I was going to. I really did. But we've improved so much. We certainly have improved so much. Less patients are getting kidney transplants now. They're not using steroids as much to treat the disease. They're using chemotherapy less than they were before because we have these 3 drugs. And the chemotherapy was no joke whatsoever. And I went through that in 2004, right after law school. It's really can affect the body. And I unfortunately now have like 16, or I take 16 medications. Probably have several other autoimmune conditions now. And people, unfortunately, with lupus tend to have other conditions as well. I have fibromyalgia, which is also autoimmune. So it's so important that we really participate and understand our condition and educate ourselves. If I can shout from every rooftop, this is what lupus is, I will do so because it's important that we really figure this out.
You said that about us participating in clinical trials, and I always talk about myself before I talk about anybody else, not because I'm conceited, but I try to walk the walk and talk the talk. I'm a prostate cancer survivor, caught it at the early stage because I believe in going to the doctors. But after I was able to caught it early, didn't have to go through extensive treatment, etc. But I donated my tissues to research. Because I know that there's not enough African American men donating our tissue because diseases do affect people differently because we are all different. We have different genetic makeups, and of course ethnicities and lifestyles, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to you and Pam, you two are just inspiring. To look at what you do and what you've accomplished. Chris, when you said you didn't know if you would even go to college or make it through college or live in all that you've done, and Pam, we get to see her every day, or we're all touched by her work. You guys are just so encouraging, and so to people who are looking at this program, whether you have lupus or someone who have lupus, or if you just have time and you want to donate some time and some energy, how can people how can they help your foundation? What can they do? How can they reach out to you, Chris, Pam? Share that information, because the producer's telling me we got a few minutes. We always run out of time when it gets good and juicy.
Yes.
So our website is www.lupusga.org. You can go there and find out more information about lupus through the Georgia chapter. We have 30 support groups around the state. One of them is the one Pam is in, the LACES group, which is in DeKalb County. I lead a support group for men living with lupus. We have a virtual support group that's every other Tuesday that takes place. and there's several around the state. And so if you go to that website and give us a call at 770-333-5930, let us know that you want to volunteer. Coming this April 13th, we'll hopefully, God willing, we'll have our biggest fundraiser of the year, which is our Lupus Walk, which will be in Piedmont Park. We just finished last week our fall walk. We had a virtual walk just last fall, and so, I don't want to like always mention money, but without donations, this organization would not run. It would not run. So if you can donate, go to the website, find out how to donate. We're still collecting money for the walk itself. Participate in our walk on April 13th. You will see we've had as many as 14,000 people in that park walking for lupus, and it's us. Those are who we see in the park. It's mostly us in the park. It's a big family, and it's an amazing. It's life. It's uplifting. It's inspiring. Lots of people who are people of God, really in the park praying that we find a cure to this condition. The money that we raise goes to lupus research in this state. 90% of it goes to research in this. Well, 90% of the funds stay in this state that we use for services. We provide financial assistance to patients who really are trying to decide, can I pay for my medicine, or do I need to get the lights on? And so there are plenty of resources that we provide to help a patient. You can obtain pamphlets, information about any component of the condition. Oftentimes those things can be downloaded from our website. So go to our website. It's lupusga.org and find out more information about our organization and certainly about lupus.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that information. I was going to let Pam have the last word, and I'm still going to do it. They're producing me. They were talking in my ear. But Pam, give me the last word. Anything that you want a last parting word from you?
I just wanted to say thank you so much, and please do go out to the lupusga.org organization, become a part, get information, spread the news, let people know about this illness, this disease, and that we are still in the trenches looking for hope and working to get a cure for this illness. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much, Pam. Jean, thank you. Sharon, thank you. To our audience, we thank you so much for joining us. Again, we've been talking about lupus, how you can get involved. Make sure, go to our website, hohatl.org, and get some information, or go to Hope TV and find out. Again, we want to thank you on behalf of our executive producer, Dr. E. Dewey Smith, as well as our producer and head of our marketing department, Bidna Aladdin, and Cammie Tapton, our associate producer. We thank you all for tuning in to Hope TV and to Forever Young. And remember, age is nothing but a number, because you are forever young. On behalf of Jean and Sharon, I'm David. Take care and God bless. See you later.
Bye-bye.